Look at this replay. It's about 40 seconds until dragon spawns, and red team already has their first 3, putting them at sole point. Now while they also have gold lead over blue team, this doesn't matter at all. We're in the super late game, and blue team's composition is full scaling. They have 2 hyper carries who are at 5 and 6 items, as well as a triple tank frontline to peel for them. Somehow red team's going to have to find a way to get onto the Azir and Misfortune, but luckily for them, the dragon is about to spawn, so they know exactly where their opponent is going to go. Now watch how they make use of this, and pay special attention to Kennen and Wukong's positioning. They know their job in this fight is to get on the backline, so they're positioning to try and do so. But annoyingly, blue team's Nara and Poppy are blocking them. But what you may not have noticed, there's someone on red team that's missing entirely from this screen, and it's only at the moment of the engage that blue team finds out that this was all a diversion. The real threat is coming from the top side of the screen. Now at the moment of the engage, it should already be clear who's going to win this team fight. By using the dragon as a way to force a fight on their terms, red team was able to plan out and execute a team fight exactly how they wanted, ultimately leading to the game win. This is the approach I try to take with my coaching. All macro and league, in essence, is a way to increase your chances of winning a fight before it starts, which is what today's video will be all about. Everything you can do to increase your chances of winning a fight before it starts, so there's less heavy lifting to do during the fight itself. My name's Rogue and I played League of Legends professionally for 7 years. Now I'm a full-time content creator and coach for all ranks, Iron through to Challenger. So if you want more information of what a coaching session with me would look like, you can find more information by following the link in the video description below. While you're in the description, you'll also find the link to my Patreon, where I post all the recordings of my best coaching sessions in full. With an expansive library of videos covering all roles and ranks, including sessions with players all the way up until Challenger, and even some pro team scrims. It's because of you guys that I can keep making videos like this for everyone to enjoy, so thank you. When talking about teamfight setup, it's easiest to start with neutral objectives, since that's where it's easiest to imagine what your opponent is going to do next. So to start, you need to change the way you think about these neutral objectives, like Dragon and Rift Herald. Unless that neutral objective itself is going to instantly win you the game, like maybe the case with something like an Elder Dragon, you shouldn't actually care too much about getting it. The gold lead and snowballing potential that winning a teamfight gives you will always far exceed the value of something like a random dragon or Rift Herald. Instead, treat that neutral objective like it's a challenge from one team to the other for a teamfight. For this reason, you only want to be starting neutral objectives when you are strong enough and when it makes sense for you to fight. But when you do opt into a teamfight by starting a neutral objective, you do so with a few potential advantages. Here we have an example of your most basic laning phase dragon take. Red team bot lane pushes a wave into bot tower, allowing them to walk up and start the dragon. Important to note here is that since Aphelios is stuck bot lane, red team has no problem phase checking the jungle and claiming all of the vision around this dragon, which leads us into advantage number 1. Blue team has no vision at all, and is operating blind in their approach to the pit. Then when we switch the vision back on, we can see that red team has a second advantage. Red team is grouped together with 4 people, while blue team is completely split in half, trying to contest from 2 different directions while operating blind. This situation is going to force errors from even the best of players. Blue team's bot lane walks in sooner than their teammates. That's when red team uses their vision advantage to engage over the wall from where they can't be seen, ending the fight before reinforcements can even arrive. Important to note here is how quick red team was to turn off the dragon and engage. These advantages they have from starting dragon are only temporary, and had they waited, things would only get worse for them. We can see this demonstrated in this next replay. This dragon contest has resulted in a stalemate, and red team's Renekton is collapsing from topside. Now take a moment and ask yourself what you think is going to happen if blue team plays to finish dragon here. Now after remembering our 2 advantages, vision but most importantly here that the enemy is split, what do you think the blue team should do? Well, blue team ignores dragon completely, engaging onto Renekton, completely taking him out of the fight before his teammates are able to help him. And with the help from a pretty insane Rumble ult, blue team goes on to win this team fight, getting a gold lead. Later on they get the dragon anyway, because red team isn't game enough to fight them on their own terms now that it's backfired on them so badly. Taking us back to the freeze frame moments before blue team engaged, and this is only seconds away from disaster for them. Had they waited, they would have been surrounded and flanked on all sides, but because of their 1, vision advantage, Nami and Vi are able to ultimate from this bush where red team can't see them, and 2, the fact the enemy are now split, we end up with a freeze frame like this, where it's clear that from this point they should win this fight. You may not have noticed this the first time we watched it, but in that first replay, red team was only seconds away from disaster as well. Now while Yone came to the dragon with his team, his lane opponent Ahri stayed for an extra mid wave, hitting level 6. Blue team's plan here was most likely to concede the dragon, in order to buy time for Ahri to rotate in, and then to win the fight afterwards with that ultimate advantage and the big flank. Now while all of these examples so far today are from team play, this is actually an even easier concept to execute on in solo queue, especially in lower ranks. Take this replay for example, from a coaching session I did just this morning with an Emerald Zyra player. Our bot lane pushes in bot wave before walking up, taking full vision of the dragon, and starting it with their jungler. This situation is literally identical from the first replay we watched. The enemy has absolutely no information around the objective, and it's completely split off from the rest of their team, having to enter from two different sides with no vision. Now we know what we should do here. We should plan out a way on how we're going to turn, and we should execute quickly. Now this part is so much easier to do in these solo queue games because the enemy makes far more mistakes. We could do something like hide in this bush, or around this corner, and then when something like this happens with Vel'Koz walking in, we could very easily turn on him and completely one-shot him right now. Caitlyn's under tower, Lux is nowhere near us, and if we put on God Vision for a moment, Amumu doesn't even care that we're doing Dragon. He's simply ignoring it and doing Raptors. Now imagine if we hard engaged before this Amumu could ever possibly be here. It would be a very easy way to execute and just hard engage onto the bot side runner, completely carrying this fight for our team. Instead, it's our Ashe AD carry who makes that decision to turn really fast one way. And what a great decision it is. We end up with a really easy pick. But then, of course, things start looking worse. The enemy starts gaining more and more vision. Now that they've spotted us, we've lost our first advantage entirely. We don't have a great way to turn without vision. And because it's taken so long, the Amumu, who moments ago was split, has now gone and joined up with his teammates. So now we don't have that advantage either. The situation is just getting worse. And in this case, that ends up being a really bad thing. The enemy ends up poking us out quite enough, ends up getting a half decent contest, and well, things don't end up too well. We end up losing the dragon. And from the situation we were in just where we started, when obviously the enemy is making huge mistakes, face checking into us completely alone with their whole team away because they have no vision, this result should have been 10 times better than what it was. This isn't just for when your team is the one starting the objective though. If you see the enemy starting a neutral when they obviously aren't in a position where they should fight, then capitalize. You know exactly where they are, so if they're going to give you the fight that you want, then take it. The key here is that by starting a neutral, you can already predict where the enemy will go, and then establish a plan and take the positioning you want for that fight. But it's not just on neutral objectives you can do this. Let's imagine the enemy team just took Baron or got a pick on one of your teammates. What do you think they're going to do next? Well, they're probably going to run down mid. They always do. Well, if you're the kind of champion that wants to look for a flank, you know exactly where the enemy ADC is going to have to stand in order to hit that mid tower. So go ahead and look for a flank, or maybe even find an option for your TP flank. By using these moments where you can predict where the enemy is going to be, you can better make use of Fog of War, or maybe position for a front to back, or a flank, whatever it is that your champion wants to do in order to increase the chances to win that fight before it begins. Thanks for watching. Just a heads up, I'll be moving apartments over the next few weeks, so my upload schedule may be a little bit interrupted, but I'll do my best to keep up with my usual video a week upload if I can. My coaching sessions and my students always take priority, so what time I do have will go to them first. So if you don't want to miss out on my content, you can see all of that over on my Patreon or book in a session yourself. Thanks, have a great day.